G'day everyone, welcome to the Poker Pulse podcast. We are back. I'm Craig Abernethy. As always, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Catherine Young, who's been crushing it. She's a rock star. She's been doing the APT media, and Troy McLean, who is over in New Zealand at the moment, the life of a poker pro.
I sure am.
And today, as you'll notice, we've got two very special guests. One is the Australian Golden Girl of poker, Jackie Glazier, and also the APL Ambassador. And we also have the man who's had a huge impact on the growth and success of Australian poker, former at TD for the Aussie Millions up until 2020, and is now the head of poker at the Australian Poker League, Joel Williams. So how is everyone?
Good. I'm cold out at the moment, so hence the scarf.
Me too, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm just getting over a cold. So.
Yeah, you two are both down in Melbourne. Good. Well, we really appreciate you guys coming on. Obviously, it's a very busy time of year for everyone. The APL Million coming up. You're all busy with that. Kathy's been traveling around, so's Troy, and I'm pretty jam-packed with stuff on as well. So great, we could all catch up. Today, we have a very packed show for everyone. We're going to chat with Jackie about her life, her career in poker, particularly early on. Some of her huge scores and her bracelet win and her role as the APL Ambassador. Obviously, the event to do with the Jackstar, which her name is behind. We'll have a chat with Joel about. I'm particularly interested in his career and progression in poker and how he sort of become one of the TDs that we know he is. How he got into that, and then Joel's obviously going to have a discussion with us just about the issue that Corey raised publicly on his Facebook, and then was kind enough to come onto our show and discuss as well. So we've got some questions and things to do with that. Before we get into all of that, I just want to highlight the Australian Poker Schedule website. That's the only place where you can find every major series in Australia. I like to keep that up to date, make sure all the players, dealers, staff, whether you're a pro or a recreational player or whatever you just like to play for a bit of fun, you can go on there and see what's coming up so you can plan out your year. You'll also see plenty of results, updates on our social media. There's an online store there. And there's some information on the game of fantasy, which I'll be running at the APL Million.
And also a really big shout out to Project Sunrun. I mentioned them last podcast, but yet again, they've just got some really great clothing and accessories. You need to check them out on their website. We did a collaboration with their owner, Alan. He watches the podcast. He's done a collaboration with us, and he created customized Poker Pulse hoodies. They're so cool. You can check them out on our socials, or you can hit up Project Sunrun. And for a cool 15% off, use code PPP15, and that will give you 15% off your entire range. So not just our Poker Pulse hoodies, but all of their range. That'll be 15% off until the end of August. And while you guys are watching, you should definitely hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps us out immensely. So give us a like, guys.
Yeah, so let's get into it. I like to start off by asking our guests, particularly we'll start with you, Jackie, how you got into poker and what was your pathway into poker? I saw your first cashes in 2008, but yeah, let us know. Let's hand it over to you.
Yeah, I grew up playing a lot of cards with my nan and pop. We didn't really play poker, but we played, euchre and 500 and games like that. And then I studied mathematics at uni. And then I've always been into competitive sport. So when I found poker, kind of all these things kind of fit together. But it was back then, it was probably 2008 that I actually discovered poker. I didn't actually even know Texas Hold'em until then. And my husband Jamie got invited to a home game. And I asked if I could come because I've always grown up playing a lot of cards. And I was like, I want to play this game. And they said that no, girls weren't allowed to come to the game. And, so he went off to the game. And then I got online and I was like Googling this game. And so I was teaching myself how to play it because I knew I'd wear them down at some point. And so, I kept, every time we went to that home game, I was secretly online trying to work out how to play, what the hand rankings were, doing all that. And then they finally told me I could come. And I was so excited. And they go, yeah, you can serve the drinks. And I was like, get real, I'm not doing that. I'm going to come play.
Make the sandwiches.
What are you there? It was sit and goes. And they finally let me come in. I think I came second on the very first game, and then I was kind of hooked after that. It just kind of went from that. Yeah. So that was my introduction to the game.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. And so obviously, like you doing really, really well to begin with. Like, were you only just looking up hand rankings, or
No,
were you
I
also?
was kind of just trying to play. I think I found some free sites and was trying to
Oh,
practice and play while he was there. And then yeah, and then I after that I started like with APL. I was going to some of their local games, and that was pretty much my introduction outside of the home games. And then one night we were like, let's go to Crown Casino and we'll play cash. I just never knew this world existed. I walked into Crown Casino. I was like, what is going on in here? I need to get more of this. And then I quit my job and started playing. I know this is really bizarre. I started playing cash games. That was how I started. And I kept a spreadsheet with everything. Like, you know, if I paid for parking or if I bought a drink, and I just made sure I knew all my expenses, what I was spending, what I was making. And I was actually just really fortunate, I think, because I was on the good side of variance at the very beginning. And then, yeah, I fell on the other side probably after about 3 months, and then but came back up again. But it was a really steep learning curve initially. And I was just really lucky that I feel like if I wasn't on that first 3 months, well, I wasn't lucky, essentially. I don't think I would have lasted. Like, yeah. So cruel game sometimes. So yeah, I was just super lucky.
that's a huge risk for you to have taken, just to say I'm going to quit my job and I'm committing to poker. Like, you really went all in. Oh my God, you loved it that much?
Well, I did love it. I quit my job and I decided I would take a month off while I was kind of looking for a job.
What was your previous job?
I was working for Ford Motor Company at the time. Yeah. And just in a very male-dominated environment. So I was kind of used to those environments, because sometimes I think for females, especially walking into a room like that just full of men is very intimidating. That's why I've been such an advocate for women in poker. I just really want them to be able to walk into any poker room, you know, anywhere, and feel comfortable to sit down with guys and play. Yeah, so I didn't quit my job to play poker. It just kind of worked out that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When did it all snap and you were like, you became like the pro that you are today? Like, how did you get there?
It took some time. I started entering, I think, tournaments. Like, I just really essentially was cash game only for a very long time. And yeah, I mean, I would even like set my alarm for like 1 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday night or Friday night to go in to get all the drunk people at Crown and take all them.
Oh,
pretty much. Yeah, I was like cash games only. And then
You targeted the shift workers.
Sorry?
I was going to say you targeted the shift workers, but it's not. You targeted the after hours crowd.
Yes.
You weren't alone doing that.
No. And then Crown had some tournaments that they were playing on the side some days when I was in there, like a daily tournament. And they used to rotate the kind of game that was on. And then I found tournaments and I was like, oh, I should have been playing these all along, because there's a winner and a loser. And coming from a sporting background, you know, someone wins a trophy. Whereas cash games, you know, you knock someone out and they just go, you know,
rebuy.
Yeah, they rebuy. And I really loved the enjoyment of knocking someone out of a tournament, especially like Crown had a lot of freeze outs essentially back then. And you know, goodbye. You know, I don't know. Like so,
you're no longer welcome.
Yeah, and then I would lose my money on the tournament tables, and I'd have to go back to cash and build my bankroll again. And I kept kind of fleeing backwards and forwards, doing that until I really got the gist of the tournament poker, because you know, I wasn't used to playing anything other than pretty much 100 big blinds deep, and then going to tournament poker, and especially the daily ones that were structured in a way to finish pretty quickly. It was tough, but yeah, just kind of taught myself like that, and just kept going back to the cash tables to make money and then spend it on the tournament, and it just kept, you know, just learning. I think I just loved the game so much, and I just learned really, really quickly. I threw myself all in on it, like you said. Catherine, it's just like I wanted to learn. I was hungry for it. I was like a sponge. If anyone gave me advice at the table or spoke to me, I took it in I took in everything I could to at that time. Like I was just really hungry to do well.
Yeah. And obviously, I introduced you as one of the Australia's golden girls at poker. You've got a gold bracelet. Most
Yeah.
people know this about you, but I mean, I was thinking that it must kind of be a little bit annoying because your career has been much more than that gold bracelet. In fact, that gold bracelet, obviously a huge achievement. A gold bracelet is almost like a gold medal of the poker, in the Olympics, But you've actually got over 1.5 million US on Hand and Mob in tournament earnings. And I saw it was actually the year before that you almost won your first gold bracelet in a 3K in an open field event for 450,000. So you got so close, but a huge score. And
yeah, that was like I was in like the fetal position for days after that. I was so sure I was going to win that. Just when you just know, and the thing is, the difference between first and second was about 300K, and the guy I was playing against did offer an even chop at one point and play for the bracelet, and I knocked back the chop. I was like, you're cooked. I've got you. And then I lost. And I was like, it was like crying for days. So close. Yeah, just really so close. And the 3K is such a prestigious event as well. It would have meant a lot to me to have won
Is
it.
that the
Pretty
3K
much.
6 max?
It wasn't 6 max. It was just the 3K no limit. At WSOP. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a huge open field event.
Yeah.
And then, so you jumped in the main. It looked like you cashed that year. And then on the back of your success in 2012, you went back and you played the main event. And it looks like you had a deep run. You got 31st in 2013 out of like 6,000 plus for over 200K. That's a huge score. Like that is such a deep run. That would have been like day 7, I guess, would it? Or day 6?
Yeah, I think I actually busted. I think it's really cloudy, and I think too, like when you play so many days, and the main event's always at the end of WSOP too. I'm pretty delirious by that point. I can't even really remember, but I do think it might have been like really late on day 6 that I busted. And then they came back for day 7. Yeah, after that, I'm pretty sure.
They did the November 9 back then, right? So like
they did. Yeah.
That was the days, yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty surreal experience. Like, one of the most amazing experiences of my poker career, that run.
Does anyone know who won it that year? Who won the WSOP main event that year? You might know, Jackie.
I do know. Pretty sure it was Ryan Reese.
Yep, it was.
Played a lot with him. We're friends now too. Like, we spent a lot of time at the tables during that year. So
so that's I wanted to highlight that you've had a fantastic career, and you're not the APL ambassador based on the WSOP Europe bracelet, which the ladies event, which has some prestige in itself, but you've had like a long career in poker, some huge results. You've been around the game, and as you mentioned, you've got that part of you in there that really wants to promote this game, particularly for women.
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to shout out to Kathy and Shelley. Actually, they did a podcast which I released during the week that they sat down, and Shelley and Kathy, particularly Shelley, is really likes that ambassador role too, because it can be a tough place for women to get a start in. It does take some thick skin. There is, male dominated environment, but that is very good to see that changing. And just about when you were playing, you probably were the only female in every 6 tables, I'd imagine. But now it sort of seems to be like 1 in every table.
Yeah, for sure. There were tournaments I used to enter, especially like the higher buy-ins. If I used to enter a 5K or something like that, like most of the times I would be the only female in the entire field, let alone, the only female at the table. But I think too, like, I'm not like, obviously I'm a big supporter of women in poker as well, but I've always been a very like mindful about making sure that everybody at the table does feel comfortable, because there's things that go on at the table that just shouldn't be tolerated, especially back in the early days, the way that people used to talk to each other or berate someone for how they used to play.
Yeah, I think the operators and the casinos as well have done a lot of really good work in this space. I remember years and years ago, I remember being involved in a discussion where we thought we'd actively try and involve more women in poker. And in hindsight, we came up with ideas that were so out of date, so sexist, so patronising that, you know, the majority of women would have seen right through what we were trying to achieve. And the motive, like the intentions were good. We just didn't know any better. The whole idea of, you know, let's give them pink lemonade and let's give them the good chairs to sit on, not the chairs that are uncomfortable and all that sort of stuff. Like it's actually far deeper than that. And what we found, and this goes back to Crown as well as APL, is what we found is it's about changing the environment, making it more sort of accepting and inclusive, and just getting everyone, you know, respecting each other. And if that environment, if there's a conscious effort to make that environment just far more pleasant, then all of a sudden it's more welcoming and more open to everyone. And sure enough, there's enough poker players out there that are female that they will gravitate towards what you're doing based on the environment, not necessarily based on the fact that you have a pink frilly tournament in their honor, you know. And the amount of it took some time to realize that wasn't the approach. You know, if anything, it was probably achieving the opposite. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really strong women in the industry that I think were on the right path really early with how to attract more females into the game. And Jackie's obviously one of those. And now the participation rate at all levels is just through the roof. You know, we see it in small nightly games. We see it in the APL PT and APL Million environment as well. It's enormous and getting bigger.
Yeah. Well, there's
all the
two
way up
ladies
to
events.
the WSOP main event where we had someone on
Of
the
course.
final table that was a female. Like,
Yes, for
the
sure.
best
Yeah.
part.
Did you pick up on that, Jackie, that when they were saying she was the first woman on a WSOP final table in 30 years, it wasn't true? Will Shabilia from Poker News reached out and found Angie Italiano, Dom Italiano's wife,
Oh,
made
really?
the final table of WSOP APAC at Crown in, I think, 2015.
Right.
And wanted to confirm that it was actually a woman, even though her name is
Yeah.
Angela.
Yeah.
I remember
And
that
was
now
just
that you talk
the
about it.
entire WSOP reporting networks had all missed the fact that Angie went deep and final tabled that WSOP circuit event. So,
Yeah.
or bigger than circuit event, APAC event.
Do you
I
know
think
what
it was 2015. Yeah, I
Mm.
think it was 2015, 14 or 15. But we did two WSOP APAC events that were both enormous and
Yeah, so good.
fully accredited, you know, with the great man Jack Effel on floor and everything. And Angie final tabled the second one of those, and she was a
Yeah,
huge
remember.
APL and Crown player for many years.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Actually, that's a very key point that they were actually right.
I can't take credit for that one. Will picked up on it and then
Okay.
quizzed me, and I said it was 10 minutes earlier. I'd read the big piece on the lady that final tabled, suggesting how long it had been and how she was breaking the drought and all these sort of things, and I took it as fact. And 10 minutes later, I got schooled about something I was there firsthand for by someone on the other side of the world. So it was educational.
Well, just sort of to wrap up with Jackie, obviously the APL Ambassador part of it, and the ladies events at the APL PT. You won the fully dealt ladies event that they had at the APL PT, or the APL Million last year, I should say. Previously, there was just like the one ladies event. It was traditionally self-dealt. Then it sort of now progressed to a fully dealt event with dealers, the 350. And I believe it's back again. You won it last year.
I did. Yeah, that was good.
Particularly having you there as an ambassador, I think that's a great look as well. So with the APL ambassadorship, there is the Jackstar. What's your involvement with that? Like, you just promote it, obviously, and you travel around and you always play it. You have one I saw in Hobart. What's sort of the involvement there for you with that? Let's just tell us a bit more about that.
Originally, when the APL PTs came about, APL spoke to me and they said, would I create a tournament that I thought would be, that kind of higher level tournament, but something that would be accessible for a recreational player to satellite in as well. And so we came up with the Jackstar as a name, and then I created the structure and the buy-in, and really just thought that this is a tournament I'd want to play. And it's funny because I don't really want to play tournaments that often that go for 3 days. I'm more of a like get in, get out. Like 2 days is great for me. So like I was like, yeah, I'd like a 2-day tournament, but something that didn't get super turbo once you got to a final table. Created the structure and then started promoting it, and it has had some tweaks since the initial development, and that was to create that you could buy in. We added a level so you could buy in on day 2 now, and essentially sit down still with 20 big blinds on day 2. And then it's just been received really well. And I think too, like I had so much support from the community with the tournament, and then it's just really organically grown since that, because who doesn't want to play a tournament that has a prize pool like the Jackstar attracts, but also is filled with a lot of satellite players?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to sort of mention too. Yeah, that whole stepping up in the ROI you can get from like playing from a $150 event, or even qualifying through your local league leaderboards and things like that.
Yeah. And it's just been really received really well. So super proud of it. And but it's the players that have supported it, and that they're who I've got to thank for that. And
this year, for the first time, it will be a 1 million guarantee, I believe, at the APL Million, and it will definitely be a 3-day event.
Just scheduled 3-day event. Yep.
Yeah, that's all good. I'm happy to play 3 days. I'm not saying I don't want to be there on the 3rd day, but
You've created a monster, and it's like, I've created this monster. It's going to go for 3 days, Joel. Just make sure it works, will you? Just leave it up to Joel to deal with that, because there's going to be people everywhere.
We've just got to give it more and more clear air every year. 2 years ago, I had a 6 max alongside it, and I learned pretty quick that wasn't smart. So last year I had nothing alongside it, but I had a Delta event at 6 o'clock, and I learned that wasn't smart either. So this year there is nothing. There is absolutely nothing that day bar the Jackstar. There's nothing that night bar the Jackstar. It has got as clear an air as it can possibly have.
Yeah.
And we're discussing rosters.
Yeah.
We were discussing rosters a couple of hours ago, and there's currently 84 dealers rostered that day. And the only game there is to deal that day is Jackstar. There is nothing else. So
the problem is all the dealers want to play it. So
that's
it's
true too.
One as well. That's the day they want off, because they all want to play the Jackstar.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right. Well, I might we've heard a bit from Joel, but I just want to I find it interesting, your career too, Joel, like the tournament director of the Aussie Millions. Obviously the Aussie Millions is something they talk about still on podcasts and streams overseas all the time. It really put Australia on the map in terms of the big event that everyone loved. So I just wanted to understand, how you actually got into that, how you got into that role, and then, obviously what happened, and moving to APL, and now doing essentially the same thing with APL and growing it.
Yeah, sure. Look, I only realised a couple of weeks ago that I've been involved in the poker industry now for exactly half my life, which is, I don't know if that's commendable or revolting. It's one or the other, I'm not sure. Changes day to day. Basically, in 97, I came out of uni and got involved as a dealer at Crown. There's a joke in the casino industry that every manager at every level was a blackjack dealer initially, and I was no different. So dealt blackjack and roulette for 2 or 3 years, and sort of hit the wall there and got pretty sick of it, and put my hand up to learn poker, which wasn't the flavour of the month in the casino landscape, still isn't. And the more I got involved, the more I liked it. In the early 2000s, poker at Crown was, a busy night was 6 to 8 tables. It was largely 2-card Manila, 3-card Manila, draw poker, 5-card stud was the biggest game in the room. And there might have been an occasional sort of limit Hold'em or limit Omaha game, and that was pretty much the extent of it. It was basically the extension of a a local club full of old Europeans mainly, and it was a completely different environment. Then 2005, bloke called Hachem did what he did, and we exploded overnight. By that stage, I'd sort of grown through the dealer ranks, and I was in a role called the seating coordinator, which is in those days was one man and a whiteboard seating all the players, and we'd sort of source players for cash games and basically like the maitre d' of the room, if you like. And it wasn't that hard a job when we were 6 to 8 tables on a Friday night. But as soon as Joe did what he did, we just absolutely exploded overnight. Everyone came in wanting to play the game they saw on the TV. We urgently had to get more tables. We had to train more dealers. We even had to buy more equipment. We had to completely revamp what sort of tournaments we were offering to meet the demand. And throughout that period, I sort of spent a few years involved in the cash operations, like the cash games side of the business. Was involved in training because we needed a hell of a lot of dealers in a really short space of time. And I was involved in the tournament business side of the business to an extent as well. And then as we sort of go on throughout the journey, in the sort of 2006, 7, 8, 9, I just started migrating more and more to the tournament side of the business. And that through that period was the first peak, if you like. It was the first sort of spike in what was the Australasian Poker Championship that became the Aussie Millions, with alongside what Joe did in 05. They went, that Aussie Millions, those Aussie Millions fields went from 260 to 420 to 747 in 3 years. You know, it just went nuts. And he single-handedly put No Limit Hold'em on the map in this country and changed the landscape forever. And then back in those days, obviously, with the alliances around online poker companies, it was a completely different environment. We had well, it wasn't me at the time, but there was a deal in place that Crown had with PokerStars that they would put in 250 qualifiers to the main event every year. So you know that you're starting at 250 in a you know, when you're trying to generate tickets towards a $10,600 event, having 250 guaranteed every year is a really big start. But obviously the online environment changed drastically, and that sort of coincided with the time that I was starting to get higher up in the ranks in the tournament space. And I had a few doubts. I thought, God, I basically lost $2.5 million of tournament entries a year. Where the hell do I find them? So yeah, we had to change tack and change tack fast. And what we did was ramp up the satellites. We ran satellites to the Aussie Millions. I think by the end of it, by 2020, there was a 2-week period between the last event of let's call it 2020 Aussie Millions and the first 2021 Aussie Millions satellite running. So literally I think it was the second week in Feb for about 4 or 5 years running was the first Aussie Millions satellite for the following January. So that, you know, obviously worked because we hit 800 for the first time. And when you think that that's without the support of the online operators, without 250 satellite qualifiers just dropping in your lap, we hit, I think from memory, might have been 800, 820, 804, 800, might have been 804, 820 and 800 even, something like that. But we hit 800 3 years in a row without the ability to actively have the online providers helping us. So that was a really, really big sense of achievement. The fact that we could do that, we sort of felt like we had a lot of things going against us, but we still had the ability to generate enough tickets to satisfy the local market, which in turn is used almost as an advertisement to attract the interstate and international market.
Yeah,
I think
that's
like
right.
80 to 85 to 90% of the field was satellite entries, right?
No, not quite. I think the peak number was about 550 out of a field of 800. Now, obviously, being a freeze out, there's repeat entries in there, so you might have high 300s uniques, but that's basically 50% of the field.
Yeah.
And the beauty of, and this is, we'll get to this in a sec, but it's basically what attracted me to APL as well, is that satellite model is twofold, because for every satellite winner in the room, not only are you celebrating the fact that a $10,600 entry tournament is not out of reach because he won one last night. You're telling all your other locals to strive for that as well because it's achievable. But what you do as well is you basically then advertise the fact that you are actively generating satellite qualifiers at a rapid rate to the international market, and they see it as dead money, right or wrong. They see it as dead money. Yeah. So we had the best of both, where we could basically celebrate within the Crown Poker Room that we've generated 10 seats, 12 seats this weekend. Aren't we great? But also almost spruik externally that this could be the softest $10,000 tournament on the planet. And you're actually using both halves of the equation to sort of come together and do their thing. And as we know, the best player in the room doesn't always win. But if the best player in the room thinks the field is soft, well, you've got a lot bigger chance of convincing them to get on a plane and find a hotel and get themselves here. So that was the sort of the secret to it. Once the online stuff dried up, was driving satellites to reward local participation, but then almost exploiting, if you like, that local participation to the international market, where you can basically say, these are the guys I'm putting into this tournament. Can you really afford not to come? And then if all goes well, you get that best of both worlds, and you get fields of 800 plus in a 10K freeze out.
And of course, you've got Australia too, right? So like Australia in itself, Melbourne, like that's a huge attraction for people overseas. Like they love Australia, you know, they love Australia just as a country. They love the landscape that we live in, the beautiful city.
Yeah.
You know, and look, the tourism was huge. You know, it's not just the Crown.
It was no accident that we had near perfect synchronicity with the Australian Open. It's also summer in the southern hemisphere. It's winter in the northern hemisphere, and obviously trying to attract people to Melbourne. If you're going to try and do it from overseas, well, holiday time in summer with the tennis down the road is when you do it. And they were the two biggest keys to the success of Aussie Millions, if you like, was the blood, sweat, and tears as far as driving the satellite program was concerned, because trying to gain Aussie Millions interest in February is difficult when the tournament's in January the following year. So driving that takes dedication and passion and just relentless convincing and arguments and whatever else. But the other side of it was obviously selling Melbourne in summer alongside the tennis in a period where the majority of the world's got access to holidays. So that's that they were the two biggest things. And that I really hope, I've heard Troy mention it a lot. I haven't spoken to many people at Crown recently, but looks like a full steam ahead towards the Aussie Millions next year in April. And I wish them all the best. I hope it really comes back with a bang. But the two big things that concern me is the satellite program has to be astronomical. It has to be a daily focus for a long, long time. And the fact that they're not going to get the free kick of being alongside the tennis in summer in Melbourne in January.
Well, the time, don't like the time pick. It was a bit of an odd one. I mean, I get it. It's very, very soon to do it in January, but you've got free marketing just by holding it in January.
Well, the hard work is, obviously getting it there, but then that's the bad news. Like, it is hard work to get all that working. However, the good news is they can literally copy and paste what you did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's all been done before. They just have to run it with the same intent and eventually get it back to, I believe they will get it back to January. I think it's just a timing thing, April the first time. Maybe I'd be hoping 2027 they get it back in January. And literally, why would you change something that just worked and was such a huge hit, you know? It's just...
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm as keen as anyone to see it back. I always knew I was just passing through. I was a caretaker of it. I took it over from guys that had just as much passion for it as I did. And I, through circumstances, largely COVID, I didn't have the ability to hand it over to someone. I always thought there'd be a little bit of a succession plan, like a football coach, where I'd sort of, have that ability to to nurture it and pass it on to someone who I thought was worthy. It didn't quite pan out like that. But yeah, I hope they pick it up and treat it with the respect it deserves and get the results it deserves, because it's, you know, it's a question I've been asked more than any other in the last 5 years is, when's Aussie Millions coming back? When's Aussie? And, you know, that's just it's an indication of the love there was for it and the way how highly it was regarded. And you get asked that. The thing that freaks me out is you get asked that by people that I know for a fact never went. And not through any reason, people that might not have been over 18 5 years ago, for example, asking me when Aussie Millions is coming back. There you go. And
I couldn't even
I'm
go.
thinking, my
Never
God,
been.
there you go.
I never get to
You
play
know,
the main because it was right as I started like playing just like recreationally, the Aussie Millions. So I played a few satellites but never got to play the main.
Yeah, look, the amount of love that's out there for it is just yeah, it's a credit to what we did, but it's a credit to what a lot of people before me did, from converting it from the Australasian Poker Champs to Aussie Millions and beyond. So yeah, it was a pretty special time. It's sort of, there's a lot of standout moments throughout that period too.
Shurane, friend of the podcast, satellited in for I think $250.
Yeah,
$150. He won the main.
Yeah, there's a backstory there. He doesn't share too often, but yeah, he did. I'll share that. The backstory with Shurane, he was largely an APL player, not really Crown at all. He was a low limit cash player at best, but largely he was known in the APL circles. And he was going on a fishing trip to New South Wales. He got his car, couldn't play Aussie Millions. He got his car serviced, all set to go. There's bits here you haven't heard, Troy. Trust me. So anyway, so off he goes. He gets down the road. A couple of hours down the road, his check engine light comes on. He thinks, I better check that out. So he goes back to Melbourne. They say it's going to be 2 days. So he actually rang the poker room, and I answered. And he said, are there any Aussie Millions satellites on? I said, yep, there's 130 with a $100 rebuy, 1 seat guarantee. He goes, cool, I'll play that. So he comes in, he plays that, he wins that, he's got a seat. So the bit of the story that he doesn't tell very often, if at all, is we had a really, really, really strict rule that you must play your first seat. There is no cashing out. There is no, you can roll it, you can roll it. When I left in 2020, I even know the name of this guy in Mexico. There was a guy on the books from 2008 that had a main event seat with us. So I held that for 12 years. I presume it's still on the books at Crown somewhere. But I always said, you will never, ever lose it, but you cannot cash it out, And the amount of satellite qualifiers we were putting in for very cheap buy-ins, 10K was life-changing money, and they would tell you a lot of different stories as to why they can't play it and why I must cash it out. But we were strict. We were really steadfast on that. So Shurane said, I'm going fishing. I can't play. I need to cash it out. I said, no, it's not happening. You play it next year. He said, I won't be available next year either. I said, don't care. You're not cashing it out. Play it the year after. And this went on daily for about 10 days. I'm not kidding. He came up with a different reason. He had family problems. He had car problems. He was moving interstate. He was going overseas. Everything but, suggesting he was going to be dead this time next year and have to cash it out. Like, he was just unbelievable. And to the point where I was getting fairly frustrated, saying, I am having this argument with 100 people a year. They all get the same answer. You must play your seat. You do not have to play it now, but you got to play it. I will outlast you. I will hold it forever. So anyway, he basically went into that main event kicking and screaming because he really wanted to cash it out and take the 10 grand on a fishing trip to New South Wales once his car was ready. And then fast forward 5 days, and all of a sudden he's got 1.6 million reasons to be fairly bloody thankful that I held
exactly. I was going to say, sort of, if they didn't have that rule and you weren't so strict on it, then he would have walked away with 10,600.
I do remind him of that occasionally, but yeah, look, there was heaps of highlights. Yeah. One of my favourites, a guy called Manny Stavropoulos won the main in 2015. That was my first year as head TD of the Aussie Millions, and Manny was a really, really well established long term high limit cash player, but not necessarily a tournament player. And standing on stage, we got live stream, we all got earpieces and RFID and all this stuff going on, and he's out of his depth, and I felt like I was too. And, you know, you can see us throughout that stream. Every time he folds, he stands up and he talks to me. Yeah. And the basis of nearly all of it was, are we all right, Jolly? Do we know what we're doing? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. He goes, well, I don't know what I'm doing either. So we'll figure it out, mate. We'll be all right. And
that's the beauty of poker.
That went on for 12 hours until all of a sudden he's holding the bracelet at the end of it. So that was pretty cool. That was a good first experience.
Yeah, that's the beauty of poker. I love it. Like literally anyone can win. And that's the attraction, you know, like it's not like any other sport in the world where you can rock up and just win the Masters or the Wimbledon or whatever, you know. In poker you can literally win that.
Exactly right. That will last forever. I mean, the amount of people that we had that played that event to say they had played that event. If you surveyed everyone after the first hand and said, do you honestly believe you can win this? I was always amazed with how many people in the field actually genuinely believed they could not win it, but they wanted to be a part of it. You know, there were guys, we had anyone and everyone. We had Negroni, we had Helmuth, we had Ivy, we had Lederer, we had Gus, we had Fedor. Fedor retired and still played 3 years of Aussie Millions after he retired. You know, we had anyone and everyone on the planet that was making that a genuine event, you know, and the amount of people that just really had experiences like they'd never had, you know, before or since was just fantastic.
Yeah. I can see the passion that you have for it. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, that's why I'm keen to see it. Keen to see it live and breathe again. It's it was an amazing time, and it's the one thing about tournament poker I find from an operator's point of view is you can see when you've done it well, you can see when you mucked it up as well. Yep. But it's very easy to actually, provided you know what you're looking at, it's very easy to look at a room and look at a tournament, look at the structure, look at the average blinds, look at the length, look at the final table, etc., and look at it and go, God, I got this right. Yeah. You know, and in the early days when I first started in the head TD role I had at Crown, I sort of had to make a conscious decision if I was going to get the business on side or if I was going to get the players on side, because they're very different objectives. The players want long levels and deep stacks, and the business wants it in that environment, wants a direct opposite. So you got to find that middle ground. And I sort of I thought I'll get the players on side first of all, and then I'll figure out the business side of it. So I basically tripled the depth of every given tournament. We had tournaments that was supposed to be over in a day that went for 3 days. We had a main event that was supposed to end on a Sunday. It ended on Tuesday morning, and it caused massive issues for everybody. So then I panicked and overcorrected, and all of a sudden all the tournaments became these horrible short stack shove fests that shouldn't have been. And that was just as bad, but in a different way. So once you get the experience, you learn how to find that balance between running something that's remotely viable for an operator or a casino to host, but still worthwhile and valuable and deep enough for a player to think, okay, I'm not going to be, you know, blinded out of this in 10 minutes flat. So that's the challenge.
Throughout the poker community, lies, deceit, and scamming are considered especially egregious. Across Australia, the dedicated individuals who investigate and discuss these things are part of a podcast team known as the Poker Pulse Investigations Unit. These are their stories.
All right, so one thing we have to discuss, obviously, Corey's posted last week about the scam alert, Tom Bauer. And look, understand this is difficult for APL, difficult for Joel, difficult for a lot of people involved. But Corey did post that. He was kind enough to come on. And part of the reason that we're so fortunate to have you guys on the show, particularly Joel, is to talk about that. Yeah, so, I mean, look, just from APL's perspective, Joel, like, did you just want to say something about that or, help that?
No problem. Yeah, look, obviously there's plenty we can't discuss. But there's also a fair bit that Corey has put out put out there, and Tom's all but confirmed. Like, from a confidentiality point of view, one of the questions that was thrown up non-stop is why didn't APL make a statement? And there's a really, really simple reason: we just can't. There's confidentiality clauses built into just about every employee agreement on the planet, whether that's in this company or any given company. It's the same. It's like saying a person might lose their job through pure incompetence. You can't then make a statement saying we sacked them for pure incompetence and they couldn't do the job. So we were in a position where we even consulted with our legal team, but we were just in a position where our hands were tied, and we weren't in any way, shape, or form able to make that statement. Also, once we terminated Tom's employment, which was in November last year, there were still ongoing investigations that weren't necessarily similar indiscretions that Corey's talking about, but there was still ongoing investigations that was just even more reason why we couldn't discuss it publicly. Having said that, we thought there was a duty of care to run through some of the details with other operators, for example, which was done. And we find ourselves through the APLPT industry on a different floor in a different state every 3 to 4 weeks, and we're pretty accessible. So there's been a lot of one-on-one sort of questions or concerns, or I just need a clear understanding of this, and within reason, we're always happy to address that. But as per the confidentiality clauses of any given employee agreement, we were never, ever in a position to be able to make a public statement about it, unfortunately. Also, really, before we go on, before I forget, I think it's really important to call out Corey here. I think that, just to say how much respect I've got for what he did, the courage it sort of takes to make that sort of post and publicly admit you've been subjected to something like that, particularly involving, someone you've known so long and you trust so much, I think is a real credit to him. It was a really balanced, I thought he put it out there in a really balanced way. He made it really clear that he, it wasn't his intention to actively shame someone. It was more in the name of a public service announcement. And I think it takes a lot of courage and bravery is probably the wrong word. It's probably as simple as guts, really, to do it, to admit that he didn't see through it. He was exposed to it, and it's cost him, probably cost him financially, but it's cost him a friendship, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a secret, I think.
Broken trust.
Since March, I sort of heard it a few months before that, and it wasn't, he was sort of concerned about other people getting scammed, which is what the final trigger was to do it. So,
Yeah, sure.
So you're saying that the reason APL, couldn't say anything due to confidentiality reasons, obviously, and yeah, that's fairly standard with most businesses. I would expect legal advice, etc. I understand players' point of view, what about other people getting scammed?
Me too. Yeah, and look, APL runs nearly 600 nightly games a week across the country. It's not our first rogue employee. It won't be our last. I had him at Crown. We've all had him. It happens. But you can imagine if you went out with a public statement explaining why any given person in any given position of power has been relieved of their duties, well, it's just not that simple, unfortunately. Yeah. And the other thing to remember too is that I did 23 years at Crown, which I'd argue was probably the most regulated building in the country. Meanwhile, Steve Ibrahim, the new APLPT business manager, he did a similar period at Star Sydney, which is probably the other most regulated business in the country. And we now work for Entain, that owns Ladbrokes and Neds. It's a global company, and again, it's part of the most regulated environment on earth. So we're not in a position where we can go rogue, where we can make judgment calls and use our discretion here or there. We simply can't do it. If we ever thought we had the ability to get tricky with entries, I rest assured the Jackstar last year wouldn't have ended on 999 like it did, because that's bugged me for 12 months that the total was 999. But that's where it lands. That's where it lands.
Do you want to jump in, Jackie? Do you have something to say there?
Yeah, I think too, like Joel didn't mention, Tom actually didn't admit to any of these things either with APL, and it wasn't until Corey's post that's the first time I would say either APL or myself has even heard of Tom even admitting anything.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't like he was like, I did it and I'm guilty, and then we could kind of even
for sure.
He'd admitted it, so it kind of made that a little bit more difficult for APL as well at that time. And I'm like so grateful. Like I know that they feel really confident that they found it, and in the end, even though it was Tom's intention to steal from the players or the players the field, essentially he ended up stealing from APL, and not to mention now kind of tarnished the brand a little bit as well. So like kind of double.
Yeah, so it would have been a lot easier for APL to obviously come out with a public statement if Tom had admitted it and whatever, and it was all like accepted.
Absolutely.
But sort of moving on, I just want to sort of move on a bit, like because Jackie was sort of getting to the prize pools where, Tom's stolen from APL. Like he intended to steal from a player, but he's actually stolen from APL. And the prize pool. So how confident are you that the prize pool shortages and just the realistic terms, what the amount is that was stolen was actually made up and made accurate again?
Yep. Look, I can't go into absolute specifics, but I can say that 99.9%, and I'm being conservative, prize pools were rectified. So basically, we have a lot of experience, we have a lot of full-time employees with a lot of knowledge, and we have a lot of processes in place that are there to specifically designed to catch this sort of thing. So the ability for us to identify tournament entries on the run that come up as anomalies, that don't match entry data, that don't match what your eyes see, that don't add up mathematically. It was a real credit to some of the staff involved that were able to spot those anomalies and then escalate it to us, which is always hard when you're questioning the decisions of a senior manager. And then for me and a select few others to basically protect that circle, if you like, and almost exclude like peripheral staff to investigate on the run, come to a conclusion on the run, and then rectify the situation on the run. So, for example, there were, I think Corey mentioned half a dozen transactions that corresponded with exactly what we found, and those prize pools were contributed or were paid, if you like, those entries were paid by us simply because we were able to identify the anomalies throughout the entry process. So we could spot what was missing, we made right what was missing, and that was all the while still trying to ascertain exactly what the bigger picture was, which we didn't necessarily find out until we terminated in November. Yeah. So there are a lot of staff involved that showed just experience and diligence to actually to spot this stuff, action it so we could investigate it, rectify it, and get to the spot we were, all in the middle of conducting, massive multi-day tournaments, So,
yeah. No, that's good to hear.
Yeah, just moving forward, what are you implementing that might be different, that might help something like this happening in the future?
Yeah, look, we're always reviewing tournament processes and procedures. I can't necessarily list them. It's like asking a casino to identify where the blind spots are in the cameras. We all know they're there, but they don't tell you where. Yeah. But look, even this week, we had meetings to review internal policies to determine what circumstances we'd refer theft to the police, for example. Well, that's not an action that we looked at previously, but it was an action that we thought we needed a clear process on that to actually identify what sort of threshold, if you like, could potentially warrant police action. So we're keen to learn and adapt from this situation and any similar situation. We're not immune to it. I don't think there's a business on earth that is immune to this sort of thing. All you can do is put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by the best possible people and the best possible procedures, and try and minimize that risk. I mean, I trusted Tom implicitly. It was really, really disappointing. He was hired, like if you actually look at the position, he was hired to replace me. as I was transitioning to the head of poker role. So I think there's always even more care and sort of thoroughness when, thoroughness, if that's a word, when you're hiring someone to continue on from what you think you've built, then more so than any other position. So
I think a lot of people trusted him. I think that's why it shocked everyone. Like, I had someone message me from New Zealand asking if it was even true. Like, so it's not just like Australia-wide; it's like internationally as well. So
and look, it's also important to keep it in perspective. The APL Million last year did just short of 26,500 entries in a 17-day period. Now, the questionable entries, and when I say questionable, they were temporarily questionable until they were rectified at our expense, but that's not the point of the story. It was less than 0.03%. So if you look at it from a variance point of view, 0.03%, and again, they're not errors, they're temporary errors that were fixed before prize pools were published and then awarded to players. It's important to keep it into perspective. No one's justifying what he did. No one's playing down what he did. But a lot of the commentary around, APL can't be trusted and they can't run major tournaments. Well, I'd argue my 25 years experience, and that's before we go into whoever else in the business that has got similar lengths of experience in this industry, would probably suggest that we can. And a 0.03% temporary variance across 26,500 entries. Yeah, it's not a bad result. No, and it's also important to realise that while we might not have publicly stated it, because quite simply we couldn't, to spot anomalies in an environment that is that full of that many people doing that many things at the same time, and be able to identify and actually understand what you're looking at, and then figure out how to rectify it to make it right, and then to get that done without necessarily skipping a beat externally, so no one actually sees a 3-hour lag between locking a tournament out and posting a prize pool. Well, there wasn't. We were on top of it. We had it. We knew what we were doing, and we knew what to do. Yeah. And just one other thing that sort of came out of that discussion was the fact that APL were muting comments on the marketing posts that went out the same day.
Yeah,
we're an awfully big company now. Entain is global. As I said, they own Ladbrokes and Neds, so you can imagine how many stakeholders and how many departments across how many different states and countries there are in this organisation. And all the marketing collateral was scheduled by the marketing department. So when the marketing department's never heard of Tom Bauer, they've never heard of Corey Van Jaarsveldt, and they schedule their posts trying to drive awareness towards APL Million, and they do that, I think very well. And then all of a sudden, one of their posts gets attacked. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing or anything. I'm just telling it like it is.
It was pretty bad timing.
Yeah, it was. But their posts get attacked, and they have no idea what's going on. So they go,
what's going on?
We'll mute it. Yeah. No one actually thinks to ring me and say, is this okay? What are they talking about? Do we delete? Do we answer? What do we, Now, so that's just an indication of how many departments you've got. And the casino world was the same. Unfortunately, the departments don't necessarily talk to each other every day, and those things happen. So it wasn't any great big cover-up. It was simply a marketing department not understanding what was going on, and they wanted to preserve the integrity of their hard work in the marketing department.
Yeah. Now, Jackie, you've got to go, yeah? Right, you've got to go.
I do really need to go, yeah.
Well, I just want to. Well, that's all right. I want to wrap. I just want to say thank you for joining us, Jackie. We'll see you next week at the APL Million. We look forward to it. Again, really appreciate you coming on.
I'm super excited and looking forward to seeing everyone. And thanks for having me on too, guys. Appreciate it.
Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
One of Australia's golden girl in poker. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about the APL Million this year. And, I mean, you've already discussed the Jackstar and how you've gotten rid of all the Dilladot events and put a lot of staff on. But just for everyone to know, like, is there anything else different? Like, have you got any other sort of alternate systems? Like, what have you actually done in general to just make it an overall player experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're always evolving. We're always changing. I mean, anyone that's known how I've operated for the last 10 or 15 years, the majority of the changes I implement are based solely off player feedback. I've always been like that. So that's how it morphed into what it is this year. So a few that are sort of tangible. We had issues, obviously, with the Jackstar demand. An element of that was just simply being extremely busy, but there was also some things we could do with the schedule, which we've done. So there are no Delta events day or night alongside Jackstar. It did take me 2 years to admit it, but it was getting, as the competing events were getting less and less, the Jackstar was getting more and more. The space has got more tables this year as well. The Mozza restaurant around the corner is no more, and that is now a dedicated poker area. So it will actually be more tables. We also, couple of things like, it doesn't sound like much, but in the last few APL PT series, we've implemented a live status board. So it'll sit at registration. It'll also sit on the floor, and it's almost become an industry standard. And we've been trying to do it properly for some time. We've just consistently had tiny little things that have just held it back, but we've run it through the last few APL PT series, and it gives everyone live status of what tournaments are on, how long left is late registration, what's coming up, are there alternates, all that sort of stuff, how many players in, how many players remaining, etc., etc. Also, we're also a little bit unpredictable with open times for registration. We had a clear policy, but for whatever reason, it was probably our fault. It wasn't communicated that well. So now registration opens for 2 hours prior for every single event, irrespective whether it's $80 or $5,000 or anything in between. So that's a really clear difference, and it just provides that level of consistency. We also get a lot of use out of the self-serve kiosks. People avoid the queues and use the self-serve kiosks. And the one thing that's always held us back with those is they've never done re-entries. Well, now they do. We'll have dedicated self-serve kiosks as per normal that do only entries, but we'll have Surface Pros on the other side of those kiosks that only do re-entries. They spit out different coloured tickets, so there's no confusion as to what you've got and where it came from. But just the ability for players to now re-enter via a kiosk rather than jumping back into the queue is going to make an enormous difference.
Awesome.
With the you said that you had an ongoing event list. Would that be able to be accessed on your phone or anything like that, like on the APL website?
Yes. Yeah, it can be. So the status board is available on your phone. Also, something else that we cleaned up as well is last year we wanted to communicate the stats of alternates far and wide. So basically, it was a fairly rushed job. The idea was great, but the delivery was a bit clunky of a Google Doc that you could sort of access and see what the alternate status was. And it served a purpose, but we've taken it further, and those messages will now be built into the tournament clocks themselves. And the tournament clock, the live feed, is visible throughout the app. So you can look at the event 7 clock, see there's 20 minutes left of event 5 or of level 5, for example, and the message will say, now seating alternates 100 and under. Your ticket's alternate number 93. Cool, that's me, I'll go. So that information is easier to get to. So the fact that there's longer registration times, more ways to self-reg, and then more ways to actually identify if you're, where we're up to if we do have alternates again, is hopefully going to make everyone's experience far, far smoother, ideally.
Yeah. And I mean, players can make their own experiences smoother themselves, right? Now, look, I'm not a pro, so I don't understand all the, all the max EV sort of stuff about max late regging and all this sort of stuff, right? But for me, as part of a player's job as a professional, surely is to get organised, right? So,
exactly.
Look at when look at when the time's on. Look at when late rego is. This is one of the biggest events of the year, right? You're not going to be the only person there. The reason you're there is because there's so many people and you want the prize pool. So with that comes that with get organised and actually look and try and be ready in advance, and just be prepared so that you'd make it easy for yourself,
Yeah, exactly right. We had last year we had people telling horror stories well before the fact of the final flight of the main. You're never going to get in. There'll be queues. There'll be alternates. You're not going to get a seat till midnight and all this sort of stuff. And it was almost out of control before we even got to the day. Now, as it turned out, I'm just making sure my maths is right. As it turned out, the first card pitched of that final day main event flight had 66 dealt tables. So for first card pitched, we sat, if my maths is right, I think it's 594. 594.
Yeah.
Now, there's a give and take here. If you can't be within the first 600 people to walk into Southport Sharks on the morning of that last main event flight, then I probably can't help you. You know what I mean? Like seating 594 straight off the bat. And now we didn't seat 594, but we had 66 dealers on 9-handed tables at that first card pitched. So a lot of people, and sometimes you've also just got to appreciate it's busy. We had a situation last year. It was a guy from Melbourne that I'd convinced to come up, and he bailed me up, and his alternates, and it's not fair, and you should have more dealers, you should have more tables, you should have this, should have that. And I took him for a walk around the room. We had 72 dealt tables at that moment in time. Now, he was still an alternate, absolutely, but 72 dealt tables. Crown Poker Room at its peak had 55. So at that moment, that very moment, and I wasn't counting, I think 6 or 7 tables that were available we didn't have dealers for, but we had 72 dealt tables that were full. So for one event, mind you. So if you find yourself in that situation, occasionally that you've just got to come to the realization that it's just bloody busy.
Yeah.
You walk into a 7-Eleven and there's 4 in the queue. You don't say they should have put more staff on. You go, damn, it's busy.
Yeah.
And that's, there's an element of that as well. So
I think
absolutely.
I think a bit of that come from the Jackstar, and everyone was like, we're running other events, and everyone's like, there's huge delays.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it then flew on to the main event. And
which you've acknowledged. You've admitted to it.
Yeah.
You know that was a big mistake to have.
Of course. And look, there's still people I know are out there that are on the fence about returning this year largely because of their Jackstar experience last year. And I get that. Yeah. But all I can say is that as of right this second, we're in the mid-80s for dealers. There's nothing else to deal but the Jackstar. We've got more tables. We've got more dealers. We've got more clear air. We've got more ways to re-enter. We've got shorter queues. We've got longer registrations. Like everything you can possibly do, we've done. Yep. Having said that, if 2,000 people walk in at the same time, it's going to be busy. Yep. I get it. But as far as preventative measures that you can actually control, we're trying. We are actively trying, believe me.
No, it's great. It is great that you're listening and you're not just putting your head in the sand and saying, yep, look, we acknowledge there was a problem. This is what we think it was, and we're doing everything we can to fix it. That's good.
One thing I was going to ask, I haven't actually looked at the schedule at all this year, so you might have changed it. It might still be the same. No, I've looked at the schedule, the structure of the tournament. I haven't looked at the structure.
You've done your prep. That's good.
Last year, the main event ran extremely late, which kind of turned off recreational entering. Is that still going to be going till 3:30 or 4 o'clock or whatever it was? Good
question. You've actually identified the one change we've made this year that I forgot to mention, so that's perfect.
Yay!
Yeah, so 6 o'clock night flights, I think, finished at 3:40 a.m.
Yeah.
And we got endless feedback, all of it negative about how late that was. So all of the night flights start at 4. So you've got the option that there's 10 flights, obviously. One of them's a turbo, so we won't count that. There's nine full-length flights. All of the night ones, I think bar the last one, start at 4. The last one might start at 6. But basically, there's now one 6 o'clock start in 10 flights. The rest of them are daytime or 4 p.m. starts.
Awesome.
So, I heard that feedback loud and clear. And, as I said, we've acted on it. They are all bar one are all.
Yeah, I ended up bagging the first flight, but I know a lot of my mates were like, we're up till 4 o'clock trying to bag and then bust.
Oh, wipes out a day. Yeah, absolutely.
Super frustrating.
Yeah, wipes out the sleep cycle. You're a mess for the rest of it. So it's really good.
Exactly. And the guys that bag at 3:40 a.m. can work their way through it, but the guy that busts at 3:15 a.m., he's the one that sleeps the next day and gets no reward out of it. So, the 4 p.m. start obviously says finish about 1:30.
even if you do bag it, then kind of stuffs up the tournaments for the next day.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Lots of tournaments on each day as well. So it's probably
of course. Yeah, no, that's been fixed. You'll see
Good
4
job.
o'clock main flights throughout.
That's good. I'm excited. So excited. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. So let's just quickly run through the highlights. So obviously it starts on August 15th. It's a 7 million guaranteed series prize pool. There's 91 events, which is just insane. 2 million guaranteed in the main event alone. $1 million guaranteed Jackstar, $1 million guaranteed Centurion, and 1 million guaranteed 5K. So that's an incredible series. As I said, everyone's really looking forward to it, Joel. I wish you the best of luck. I know you guys have done a lot of work in listening to people, which is what's really pleasing. You've listened to players, you've listened to staff, and you've listened to yourself. You've rounded it back and you've actually watched, and you've fixed so many things. So, we're really looking forward to it. Players, if you can get as organised as possibly can, read the schedule.
Look at the schedules, guys.
Yeah, read
I've read the schedule. I haven't read the structure of the tournaments.
Yeah. So with that, one other thing. Lastly, I will be there running the game of fantasy. Jordan Bromley will be helping me out with that. Jordan's asked that make sure you go and say good day to him. He's doing some great content as well, and we look forward to catching up with you. That will be a lot of fun. And I just want to sort of thank everyone for watching as well. Please remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you like what we're doing, let us know in the comments. If you don't like something we're doing, reach out. Like our social media. We've got plenty more to come, and we really appreciate Joel and Jackie coming on today. It wasn't easy, and we like to hear all sorts of things. So we'll try and bring you as much information as we can. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you, Joel.
Guys.
We appreciate making a statement.
Guys.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys. See you there.
You.
See ya.